Hey, it's Caroline, and today I'm going to walk through some of the basic features for formatting tables within Microsoft Word. So within my Microsoft Word document, I have just added a table, and how I did that was I went to Insert, Table, and then chose the number of rows and columns that I wanted. And so here's my table on my page. You can see my page is Landscape Orientation, and you can see my table does not extend across the page. So this is it has all the default settings for my tables within Microsoft Word. So one of the first things you can do to check those settings is you see in the upper left-hand corner, there's this little cross sign. If you right-click on that, you can go to Table Properties, and there's several different little sections you can look at. So the first one is Table. You can see right now it's kind of set to what the table however many percent it is across the page. So right now it's 86.1%. So you could change that to 100, and I'll show you another way to do this in a minute. I typically have my table left aligned with no text wrapping. There aren't many situations where you would want wrapped text, but this is definitely something to check if you're working on a document and say someone pulled tables from other documents, copied and pasted, or someone that's just not very good at Word. If you see something weird happening, like text moving above and below your tables, definitely check this. This might be the problem. You might have text wrapping on. So typically you'll keep that as none since you don't want text wrapping. You can change the alignment of your table. So if it doesn't extend across the page, do you want left aligned? Do you want it centered? You can change your row height if you want to. There's other ways to do that. I'll show you in a minute. The same with your column width. For rows, you can see the default allows rows to break across pages. It really depends on what type of table I'm working on or what it actually looks like once I have all the content in the table. Occasionally, I will go and actually turn this off depending on my table because it just may look a little bit nicer or be easier to read if my rows do not extend across pages. So that's something you can kind of play around with when you're working on tables. So I'm just going to cancel here. So say if I do want my table to go all the way across the page to the margins, I can click within my table, and anytime I click within a table, you'll have these additional tags come up at the top. So table design and layout. See if I click out of the table, those disappear. Click back in the table, here they are. So if I go to my layout tab, I can click within the table, go to this auto fit and say auto fit window. And you can see now my table extends across to the margins. So if we look at just what my margins are, we have 1 inch all the way around. So now I have 1 inch to the left, 1 inch to the right. And this just looks really nice in documents with a lot of text because your text, if you're writing paragraph text, it will go all the way to the margins as well. And it just looks a lot more crisp than if you have kind of really small tables with a lot of white space. There may be situations, though, where you have a table that only has 2 columns, and maybe it looks silly to have those columns incredibly wide. So you can kind of decide what makes the most sense for your particular table. All right, so text spacing. You can see the way this table is currently set up. So we have, within the table, it's Times New Roman, 11-point font. Let's just say we add a little text here. You can see that the text is pretty close together. You may want a little bit of extra space between the text within your cells. So what you can do is highlight all of your cells that you want to change. Within the Home tab, you use your normal text formatting button. So with this paragraph, there's the drop down, and you can change the spacing before and after. So right now you can see it's 0 point. If you click the up arrows, the next one is 6. I actually like 3, so you can kind of manually just type that in. So 3 point, both before and after, single line spacing, okay. And now you can see you have a little bit more space. It's a little bit easier to read. You can also change how much space by default is to the left and the right of your cells. If you go into your layout tab, cell margins, the default is 0.08 inches to the left and right. I typically would not change this unless I'm working on a really big table that has a ton of columns and I'm really struggling to fit the text within my cells. So for example, if I'm working on a big table, I've already changed the font size down to like 8 or 9 point font. I really don't want to make that any smaller, but I'm still struggling to fit, especially long words, within a cell without it breaking across rows. I can kind of play around with this. So let's say I want 0.05, and that just gives the text a little bit more room. I definitely wouldn't go down to 0. I'll show you just what that looks like because it also gets a little bit difficult to read. So if we go down to 0 here, you can see the text is kind of right up on the line. So if you have a big, complicated table, again, that makes it a little bit harder to read. So I would at least have a little bit of space on the left and right. I would say maybe 0.03 inches should kind of be your minimum there. Okay, so for merging and splitting rows or cells. So for example, say this header row, I want to actually combine these two cells. I can highlight both of them, go to merge cells, and there we have it. It basically just combines the two cells. And then say if I want to center this text, there we go. Let's see, go to the other options. So for splitting cells, let's say for example, you have these 3 rows and it's a single column now, but say you want to break each of these rows into 2 columns. Again, you highlight all of the cells, go to split cells, and you want to make sure you're choosing the right numbers here. So number of rows, yeah, we don't want extra rows, we just want 3, but we want this one column split into 2 columns. So we got 2 here, okay, and there we go, it's split. If you do something wrong or mess up, all you have to do is hit your undo button and you can try again. So pretty straightforward. You may occasionally want to split a table. The times that I use this is, for example, if I'm working on a document and creating multiple tables, kind of one after the other, occasionally, if there's not enough space between tables, your tables will try to merge. So if that happens unintentionally, so for example, say if this bottom row is supposed to be the top row of a new table, I just click within that row and go to split table, and you can see it pulls that into a separate table. So again, pretty straightforward. Just make sure your cursor's in the correct row or you're going to have to just undo and try again. Okay, so let me just delete this table. So if we're working on a really big table that extends across multiple pages, we may want our header rows to appear at the top of every page. So here are my header rows. I'm just going to make them bold for visibility. So the way you do this is you highlight that entire row, and you can do it with one row, or if you have multiple header rows, you can do it with as many header rows as you have. Here I just have one row. I go to layout, repeat header rows, and then I will show you what this looks like. I'm just going to create some new rows so that this extends onto the next page. And you can see here we have our header row on the top of the next page, and you can see you actually cannot edit it within the subsequent pages. If you wanted to edit the content within your header, you go back to the first page, and then this is where you can make any sort of edits. And again, you can do this if you have multiple header rows. You can highlight all of them and they will all repeat across each page. So now let's say we want to have a table title or table caption, and we also want that to repeat across each page. So first, I'm just going to create a new row. So I'm on the top row, insert row above. I'm going to merge all of these cells. So again, layout, merge. Now we just have one big cell. I'm going to go just above the table and go to references, insert caption. And you see we have table selected. It's table 1, okay. And then I'm actually going to pull this into the table row. For some reason, Microsoft Word will not seem to let you actually insert a caption within the table itself, so you have to insert it and then drag it in. So I'm just going to say this is a table title. And if we then scroll down, you see that's repeated because we've already kind of designated this row as a header, and we basically added a row above which gave it the same kind of features. So for example, maybe we don't want this border around here, so we can click within this cell, go to Home. You see this little square that shows where your borders are. So I would go to No Border, and then I want to re-add my bottom border. So you can see now we have that table caption is within the table, but it doesn't really look like it's within the table. This is usually how I create my tables within Microsoft Word. And again, it still pulls on to the next page. And if you've ever worked with playing with your borders, you may want to go to this Layout tab and view your grid lines. And that just allows you to see your table without actually having table borders. So you can see the outline of the table, even though if you were to print this document, you would not see a table border there. All right, so the last thing I want to show is a really convenient keyboard shortcut for reordering rows within your table. So for example, if you are working on a table and maybe you're ordering something by, say, date or alphabetical order or certain numbering that you're using, and you're working on your table and then you realize you have some rows out of order. Well, it's really easy to just highlight that row. So here we're going to do 1, 2, 3 instead of 1, 3, 2. So I'm highlighting my 3, hold down the Shift and Alt button, and then use your arrow keys. So right now I'm holding down Shift and Alt, and I'm going to press the down arrow, and there we go. And that is all you have to do, and all of the content, all the cells will move together, and you won't have any sort of issues. As far as I'm aware, there is not a shortcut to do this for your columns, unfortunately. If anyone knows of a way to do this, please do let me know, because that would be amazing. But as far as I'm aware, that is not an option. But I don't have to do that as often as I have to reorder rows. So just knowing this keyboard shortcut could save you a good bit of time. All right, so that is all I wanted to go through today. I will probably have a follow-up video sometime in the next few weeks with some more kind of advanced table formatting things, but I hope that you found something in this video helpful that will save you some time in your documents. Thanks.